You've probably looked through an airplane window dozens of times, but hidden near the bottom is something that seems completely wrong. A tiny hole in an aircraft window at 35,000 feet. Surely that's the last place you'd ever want a hole. So why did engineers put it there on purpose? And why is that tiny opening quietly helping keep millions of passengers safe on every flight? The answer begins high above the clouds. At cruising altitude, the air outside is so thin that humans couldn't survive there without oxygen. Inside the cabin, though, passengers are reading, eating, sleeping, and breathing comfortably. That's because the cabin is pressurized. Air is continuously pumped inside, creating a pressure much higher than the air outside the aircraft. That difference creates an enormous force pushing against every window throughout the flight. The real mystery isn't the tiny hole. It's how the window survives that pressure over thousands of flights. Here's something most people don't know. What looks like a single airplane window is actually made of multiple layers. The outer pane is the strongest one. It's designed to carry almost all of the pressure difference between the cabin and the outside atmosphere. Behind it is another structural pane, and closest to you is an inner pane that mainly protects the window from scratches and accidental damage. Now comes the surprising part. The tiny hole isn't drilled through the entire window. It's only in the middle pane. Why? Because engineers didn't want pressure trapped between the layers. Instead, they created what's called a bleed hole, sometimes called a breather hole. It allows a small amount of cabin air to flow between the panes, making sure the pressure is distributed exactly as intended. That means the outer pane carries almost all the structural load, while the middle pane remains under far less stress. Sometimes the safest engineering doesn't fight nature, it simply guides it. But pressure isn't the only problem. Outside the aircraft, temperatures can fall below -50 degrees Celsius. Inside the cabin, the air is warm and full of moisture from hundreds of passengers breathing. Without a way for that moisture to escape, water could become trapped between the window layers, creating fog or even frost. The tiny bleed hole lets moisture escape, helping keep the window clear throughout the flight. And then there's one more reason. Aircraft engineers always assume that someday, somehow, something could fail. So they design backup systems long before they're ever needed. If the outer structural pane were damaged, the middle pane could temporarily help maintain the cabin until the aircraft safely descended. Because the bleed hole keeps the pressure where engineers want it during normal flights, that backup pane experiences much less stress over its lifetime. It stays ready if it's ever needed. That tiny hole isn't a sign of weakness, it's evidence of careful planning. In fact, modern airplanes are filled with small details like this: pressure valves, static wicks, wing drains, backup computers. Most passengers never notice any of them, and that's exactly the point. The best engineering is often invisible. When everything works perfectly, you never think about it. The next time you sit by an airplane window, take a closer look. That tiny hole isn't a manufacturing mistake. It isn't damage. It's one of the smallest features on the aircraft, quietly helping manage pressure, prevent fogging, and support one of the safest forms of transportation ever created. Once you know why it's there, you'll never look at an airplane window the same way again.